Lightsabers are iconic, but most people never stop to think about why they glow the color they do. Turns out, Kyber crystals are actually colorless until a Force user bonds with one, and the color that emerges is a direct reflection of who that person truly is on the inside. So let's break down every single Kyber crystal color, what it means, and why some are far rarer than others. Starting with the one you already know, blue. Kyber crystals are colorless, every single one of them. They're blank, neutral, waiting. It's not until a Force user bonds with one that it takes on any color at all, and the color it chooses is basically a personality test you can't cheat on. The crystal reads who you are at your core and reflects it back as light. Blue means it looked inside you and found someone who runs toward danger instead of away from it. That's why blue is tied to the Jedi Guardians, the combat-focused, frontline defenders of the Order. These weren't the Jedi sitting in a library meditating on the nature of existence. Guardians were the ones kicking down doors, deflecting blaster bolts, and physically placing themselves between civilians and whatever was trying to kill them. If you were a civilian during the Clone Wars and you saw that glow cutting through smoke, you knew someone was standing between you and death. And the two most famous blue blades in history belong to Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Those two basically turned blue into the default heroic lightsaber color. Every kid who picks up a toy lightsaber reaches for the blue one first, because those Clone Wars battles cemented it as the color of the good guys. But here's where it gets complicated. Anakin's crystal saw courage, self-sacrifice, and righteousness inside him. It reflected a Guardian's heart, and then that Guardian became Darth Vader. Fans have argued for years about whether that corrupts what blue stands for, or whether it actually makes it more tragic, because the crystal wasn't wrong. Anakin was all of those things. The tragedy isn't that blue lied about who he was. It's that everything blue represented was genuinely inside him, and he lost it anyway. If blue represents the warrior's path, the next color represents something completely different. Green. A green lightsaber is, when you really think about it, a sword that represents not using a sword, which is, a strange thing to build your entire identity around. Green is the color of the Jedi Consular. These are the diplomats, the scholars, the spiritual specialists of the Order, the ones who would genuinely rather sit down and talk about their feelings with a Sith Lord than fight one. Kyber crystals attune green for Force users whose personalities lean toward contemplation, meditation, and a deep, almost spiritual connection to the living Force itself. Peace and harmony aren't just ideals for these Jedi, they're the whole operating system. And here's the thing. A green-bladed Jedi will only draw their weapon after every single peaceful option has been exhausted. Negotiation failed, diplomacy failed. Probably offered the guy a cup of tea, and that failed too. Only then does the lightsaber come out. So the weapon itself becomes this paradox, a blade that symbolizes the desire to never use it in the first place. But the real reason green carries so much weight is who wields it. Yoda, 900 years old, arguably the most powerful Jedi who ever lived, and he chose green. Luke Skywalker built his own green saber before facing Vader and the Emperor, marking his transition from reckless kid with his dad's hand-me-down to a fully realized Jedi. Green doesn't just mean peaceful. It means you've earned the right to be peaceful because you've already mastered everything else. Some fans actually interpret blue and green less as rigid class assignments and more as phases in a Jedi's spiritual development. You start as a warrior, running toward every fight. Over time, if you survive long enough and grow wise enough, you shift toward that consular mindset. Blue is where you begin. Green is where you arrive. It's the color of calm authority, deep Force mastery, and the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to prove anything anymore. But if green represents the absolute best of the Jedi, then the next color represents everything they feared. Red. Every other lightsaber color on this list occurs naturally. A crystal calls out to a Jedi, they bond, and the color emerges from that connection. Red doesn't work like that. Red is not chosen. Red is inflicted. Kyber crystals are alive. They're Force-attuned, semi-sentient beings that exist in harmony with the light side. A Sith can't just walk up to one and say, hey, be evil for me. The crystal would resist. It would reject them entirely. So the Sith came up with a workaround, and it's exactly as horrible as you'd expect. The process is called bleeding. A Sith takes a Kyber crystal, usually stolen from a dead Jedi's lightsaber, and pours every ounce of rage, hatred, and suffering they have directly into it through the Force. The crystal fights back, it screams, and eventually, after enough psychic violence, it cracks under the pressure and turns red. The crystal doesn't change allegiance, it breaks. It's torture, plain and simple, performed on a living thing until it stops resisting. Darth Vader went through this exact ritual after Mustafar. Freshly sealed in the suit, missing most of his limbs, burning with hatred for everything he'd lost, he hunted down a Jedi, killed him, took his crystal, and bled it into his first red blade. Which is, a lovely way to start your new career. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. Look at Kylo Ren's lightsaber. That cracked, spitting, unstable crossguard blade isn't just an aesthetic choice. His crystal is literally fractured from the bleeding process, so damaged that the weapon needs lateral vents just to keep from exploding in his hands. The instability of the user produced an unstable weapon. The crystal is barely holding together, and honestly, neither is he. Every single red lightsaber in the galaxy is a scar, a permanent record of a living thing being tortured into submission. The weapon itself is a victim of the dark side before it ever cuts anyone down. But if red represents the darkest corruption a crystal can endure, yellow might be the most misunderstood color in the entire Jedi Order. Yellow Here's something weird about yellow lightsabers. For most of their history, they belonged to nobody. And I mean that literally. The Jedi Temple guards on Coruscant carried double-bladed yellow lightsaber pikes as part of their uniform. Standardized weapons, matching robes, masked faces. These weren't individuals expressing themselves through the Force. They were an institution expressing itself through people. The guards existed to protect the Jedi Temple, and everything about them, from their anonymous appearance to their identical weapons, reinforced one idea. The mission matters more than the person holding the blade. And that's actually a fascinating tension, because everything we've been told about Kyber crystals says they're deeply personal. They call to specific Force users. They bond. They choose. So were Temple Guard sabers personally bonded, or were they just handed out like company equipment? Fans have been arguing about this for years, and honestly, there's no clean answer. If they were issued weapons, that challenges the entire mythology of the Kyber crystal bond. If they were personally bonded, then every single guard just happened to get yellow, which is, statistically suspicious. But then Rey Skywalker does something that flips the entire meaning of this color on its head. At the end of The Rise of Skywalker, she builds a yellow lightsaber from the remains of her quarterstaff and a newly bonded crystal. This isn't a standardized weapon. This is the most personal lightsaber construction in the entire sequel trilogy. She trained under Luke, she trained under Leia, she stared down her bloodline connection to Palpatine and chose the light anyway. She could have gone blue like Luke's original. She could have gone green like his second. Instead, she chose yellow. That choice matters. Yellow was the color of faceless guards who erased their identity in service of the Order. Now it's the personal symbol of a woman who built an entirely new identity from scratch. Same color, completely opposite meaning. The institutional became the individual. But if you think yellow's origin story raises questions about what a lightsaber color really means, wait until you hear how purple got its blade, because that story starts outside the Star Wars universe entirely. Purple. Let's get the origin story out of the way because it's genuinely one of the best behind-the-scenes moments in Star Wars history. Samuel L. Jackson walked up to George Lucas and asked for a purple lightsaber. That's it. That's the origin. The man looked at the Battle of Geonosis, saw 200 Jedi swinging blue and green blades in a massive dust bowl, and said, I need to be able to find myself in that shot. And George Lucas just said yes, which is, not ideal for world-building purists, because now the lore community had to explain why exactly one Jedi in the entire galaxy was running around with a violet blade. And here's the thing, they actually did a phenomenal job. The explanation that emerged is that purple represents a Jedi who walks the razor's edge between light and dark. Blue for the Jedi, red for the Sith. Blend them together and you get purple, a color that literally encodes moral duality into the blade itself. A Jedi who channels aggression, who touches the dark side, but never falls. Not because they avoid it, but because they control it. This lines up perfectly with Mace Windu's Vapod fighting style. Vapod is canonically the most dangerous lightsaber form in existence, not because of what it does to your opponent, but because of what it does to you. The form requires its user to channel their own inner darkness, to enjoy the fight, to feed off aggression, and then funnel all of that into precise, controlled combat. Most Jedi who attempted Vapad fell to the dark side. Mace mastered it. So the purple blade becomes a literal visual metaphor. Every time Mace ignites that lightsaber, he's announcing to the galaxy that he walks a tightrope nobody else can. Now, fans debate this constantly. Is the purple means moral complexity reading genuine canon, or is it a retroactive justification for an actor wanting to look cool in a crowd? Honestly, it might be both. But the fact that Vapod exists, that Mace's entire philosophy supports the symbolism so perfectly, makes the reading feel less like fan interpretation and more like the universe bending itself to fit the blade. Either way, only one man earned that color, and nobody's taken it since. But if purple represents walking the line between light and dark, the next color represents something even more radical, rejecting both sides entirely. White. Every other lightsaber color on this list starts with a crystal finding its owner. White is the only one that starts with a rescue mission. Here's the thing about white lightsabers. You can't walk into a cave, pick up a crystal, and walk out with a white blade. A white Kyber crystal has to be a red one first. It has to have been bled, tortured, bent to someone's will through pure rage, and then someone has to undo all of that, which means white is the only lightsaber color in the entire franchise that requires darkness as a prerequisite. Ahsoka Tano is the poster child for this, and honestly, it's hard to imagine anyone else pulling it off. After she leaves the Jedi Order, she's essentially a force wielder without a faction. No rank, no council, no lightsaber. Then she defeats an Inquisitor and takes his red Kyber crystals. Corrupted crystals that had been bled by a dark side user and were basically screaming in the Force. Instead of discarding them, she reaches into those crystals and heals them. The process is called purification, and it's the exact inverse of bleeding. Where a Sith pours hatred and dominance into a crystal to make it bleed red, Ahsoka pours in hope, serenity, and compassion. She doesn't overpower the crystal. She listens to it. She acknowledges the pain and lets it go. The crystals responded by turning pure white, and that color tells you everything about where Ahsoka stands. She's not a Jedi. She's not a Sith. She's something independent, committed to the light, but completely untethered from the institutions that claim ownership over it. White is neutrality toward factions, not neutrality toward morality. She still fights for good. She just does it on her own terms, which is, significantly cooler than filling out Jedi HR paperwork. What makes this the most emotionally loaded color in Star Wars is that each white blade is literally a story of redemption. A crystal that was corrupted, suffering, screaming in darkness, and someone chose to sit with that pain and transform it into something clean. The darkness has to have existed first for the healing to mean anything. But if you thought white was rare, wait until you see a color so uncommon that the entire fanbase is still arguing over whether it even counts. Orange. This is the one that's going to drive you crazy, because there's no clean answer. Orange lightsabers exist in a weird limbo where everyone can see them, everyone has an opinion about them, and nobody can actually tell you what they officially mean, which, honestly, might be the most interesting thing about them. The biggest reason orange is even on anyone's radar is Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati from the Ahsoka series. Their blades are unmistakably not red. They're warmer, more amber, distinctly orange tinged in a way that immediately tells your brain these are not Sith lightsabers. And that visual choice is doing massive, heavy lifting, because Baylan and Shin are not Sith. They're not Jedi either. They're former Jedi operating under their own philosophy, loyal to personal ambition and a search for something deeper than either order ever offered. Their blades literally refuse to be categorized, which is, not ideal for people who like neat boxes. Here's the thing. Canon has given us zero formal explanation for what orange represents. Nothing. No ancient text, no Jedi archive entry, no Force ghost popping up to say, ah yes, orange means you're spiritually freelancing. Lucasfilm seems perfectly happy leaving it blank. That hasn't stopped fans from filling in the gaps. The theories range from orange representing wanderer philosophers who seek knowledge outside institutional boundaries, to mercenary Force users who follow personal codes rather than any order's doctrine. Some think it signals pragmatism blended with passion. Others think it's just slightly corrupted red, a partial bleed that stopped halfway. Pick your favorite, because they're all equally unconfirmed. In video games and older Legends material, orange popped up as an uncommon customization option, but never with real lore weight. It existed as a cool aesthetic choice, not a philosophical statement. The Ahsoka series changed that by putting orange blades on two of the most compelling, morally gray characters in recent Star Wars, and suddenly a color nobody thought twice about became the subject of 1,000 Reddit threads. That's exactly what makes orange exciting. Every other color on this list has at least some official framework. Orange is still being written. Whatever Lucasfilm decides to do with Baylan's story will probably define this color for the entire franchise. But if you think an undefined color is strange, wait until you see a lightsaber that looks like it's made of pure darkness. Black. Every other crystal on this list tells you something about the person holding it, their philosophy, their alignment, their relationship with the Force. The Darksaber doesn't care about any of that. It's not a spiritual artifact. The Darksaber was created by Tara Vizsla, the first Mandalorian ever inducted into the Jedi Order. And before you gloss over that, think about what it actually means. The Mandalorians and the Jedi literally fought wars against each other. These two cultures were fundamentally opposed for centuries, and somehow one guy bridged that gap. He built a lightsaber that looks nothing like any other in existence. The blade is thin, flat, and comes to a pointed tip with a white energy outline, giving it the silhouette of an actual sword rather than the standard glowing cylinder. It looks like it belongs on a battlefield, not in a temple. After Tara Vizsla died, the Jedi kept the Darksaber locked away in their temple, which is, a bold move considering the Mandalorians tend to want their stuff back. And that's exactly what happened. House Vizsla raided the temple and reclaimed it, and from that point forward, the Darksaber became something no other lightsaber has ever been, a symbol of political power. Whoever wins it in combat can claim legitimate rule over all of Mandalore. It's less elegant weapon for a more civilized age and more. If you can take this from me, you get to be king. Here's the thing, the black blade has zero connection to the dark side. It's not a Sith weapon. It's not corrupted. The unique color likely stems from something singular about Tara Vizsla himself, his bond to both Mandalorian warrior culture and the Jedi Order, creating a crystal resonance that has never been replicated. Canon keeps the exact reason intentionally vague, which honestly just makes it better. Sometimes a one-of-a-kind weapon, built by a one-of-a-kind person, is explanation enough. What makes the Darksaber truly unlike anything else on this list is that its power isn't about the Force at all. It's about lineage, conquest, and cultural identity. Every other crystal color represents a relationship between a wielder and the Force. The Darksaber represents a relationship between a weapon and an entire civilization. That's not a lightsaber. That's a nation's history forged into a blade. But if you think a weapon that doubles as a crown is strange, wait until you see a crystal color that barely even has a definition yet. Sound. Every color on this list has a story. Blue has its guardians, green has its scholars, red has its ritual of psychic violence against the living crystal. Even orange and black come with canonical wielders and at least some framework for what they represent. Cayenne has none of that, and that's exactly why it's here. Cyan is a lighter, bluish teal blade that sits right between blue and green, and it's recognized in extended lore and merchandising as its own distinct color. You can find it in games, in Legends era customization menus, in toy lightsabers on store shelves. What you won't find is a single famous canonical powerful wielder. 0 official philosophical meaning. No formal organizational role within the Jedi Order or anywhere else. It's a ghost color. Here's where it gets interesting though, because that total absence of definition hasn't made cyan irrelevant. It's done the opposite. In every game that offers lightsaber customization, cyan is one of the most popular picks for players who want something heroic but distinctly theirs. Not blue, because blue is Obi-Wan's. Not green, because green is Yoda's. Cyan belongs to nobody, which means it belongs to whoever picks it up. Some fans have tried to give it meaning anyway. The most common interpretation is that cyan represents a personality balanced between the Guardian's combat focus and the Consular's spiritual introspection, a bridge between blue and green in philosophy, the same way it bridges them on the color spectrum. It's a nice idea. It's also completely unofficial. Nobody at Lucasfilm has ever confirmed it, and honestly, that might be the point. Every other crystal color on this list was defined from the top down. Writers, directors, and lore architects decided what blue means, what red means, what white means. Cyan is the one color being defined from the bottom up. The community chose it, gave it personal significance, and keeps it alive through fan works, game builds, and endless forum debates about whether it should ever get an official meaning or stay exactly as it is. After spending this entire video explaining what every lightsaber color represents, cyan is the reminder that sometimes the most powerful choice is the one nobody made for you. Your blade color isn't just lore, it's a statement about who you are in that universe. And if you pick cyan, you're saying you'd rather write your own meaning than inherit someone else's, which is, pretty much the most Jedi thing you can do. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.